My name is John Miner, and I'm a senior data architect at Insight. Today's topic is how to capture Spark events in the Fabric Lakehouse for long-term storage and analysis. To do this, we need a couple pieces of infrastructure set up in Azure. First, we need a Fabric capacity to run our Lakehouse and Event House. Second, we need to have an Event Hub. Let's talk about the Event Hub. NS4FabCon is an event hub that I defined recently. If we click on it, we can go in and look at different settings. One of the settings is we can deploy an event hub. And so I deployed an event hub named EH4FabCon. So if we click on that, we can see now that the event hub is active and it only captures events for 1 hour. After that, the events are lost. So we need to have ability to connect to this event hub and stream that data into Event House. How do we set that up? First, we want to set up a shared access policy so that the Spark engine in Fabric can write to the event hub. I already defined one, but we need to capture the connection string. Let's do that now. If we go to SAP, which is Shared Access Policy for Event Hub, and we can see we can manage, send, and listen for events. Let's read write. Let's click on it. One of the things we can see right here is a primary connection string. If we copy that and bring up Notepad and we hit paste, we have our connection string. This will be used by a YAML file to define the properties of our Spark environment. We'll talk about that later. Let's minimize this and let's take a look at the Data Explorer. This is where you can see if data is being streamed into Event Hub. If we hit View Events, we can notice there's no data because I am currently not running any Spark jobs. Let's rectify that fact. So if we go back to the dashboard and we go into CPU for Fabric, which is our capacity, we can see it's paused. It's an F16. So we're going to resume the capacity. And this may take a minute or so. And then we will log into the Fabric portal and take a look at the environment. So if we click Fabric, we can see there's an environment here. We can click Workspaces, and we can see that there's a Fab Conference 2026 workspace already defined. If we click on it, we can see there's a bunch of items here. We can see that there is a vent house, there is a lake house, there is a vent stream, is a Fabric environment, and is a notebook. Okay, so I already set this up, but let's take a look at it anyways. There's several ways you can use the Event Hub. You can define it as a default. So if we click under Workspace Settings and we go under Workspace Type, we can see that the Fabric capacity that we define, CPU for Fabric, is already being used. If we go down to Data Science and Engineering under Spark Settings and go to Environment, we can see the event log to Event Hub is our default environment. Okay, let's look at the details of the Event Hub environment. In there, we can do different things like add libraries and or repositories, but we really want to do is set the Spark properties. How did I do this? Well, there's an add from YAML file. You can download this YAML file from Microsoft. That's where I got the template. Basically, I did find a bug in one of them. So make sure, see this My Event Hub, that's just a token or a placeholder, and it's used all over the place. For some reason, the version I had did not have My Event Hub .secret. It had something else that was causing problems. This endpoint all the way to end is that connection string we already captured. And we also want to say, hey, skip startup pools, okay? Because this is a custom pool. If that's not the case, then you can hit false. Okay, save it and then import it. If you import it, you'll have the same thing we have here, which is basically the endpoint. Okay, so now that we've set up the Spark environment to emit to the Event Hub, let's test it out. The easiest way to test it out is to go into our weather notebook. Now, this weather notebook is connected to the lake house. And if we take a look at the lake house, we can see we have two files. These are the typical files from Azure Databricks for samples, high temperatures and low temperatures. Okay. So what we're going to want to do first is, hey, let's use this environment and let's see what files are in the files directory on the weather. So let's click this. This is going to take a minute or so for the actual environment to spin up, depending upon resources. Let's go over the code while we're waiting. The first one says, hey, read from the high temperature and put it into a data frame 1 and create a view. And it's a temporary view for high temps. Second one is read the low temps and create a view for low temps. What I did is I wanted to test out my SQL before using it. Now I could just delete this or leave it here. This says join low temps to high temps on the date and then rename everything. So the low temperature date is the date because they match. Grab the low temperature and the high temperature. We're also going to drop the table, if it exists, called weather data. So if we go to click DBO, and again, I'm using Lakehouse with schemas, we can see that the weather data exists. If we just run this, it'll get rid of it. So let's see if we're connected. It's still waiting to connect. Last but not least, that command or that SQL statement is now placed into a string here document and with the triple quotes. And it's the same code. And we're saying df3 equals run the statement. It's going to come back with the data from joining those two views as a data frame, and we're going to write it out as a delta table. Okay. And we're still waiting. Okay, it took 2 minutes and 27 seconds for the actual Spark cluster to start. And now it actually did a directory listing and it found two files. If we hit view events, we should get a bunch of events, hopefully. And we did. So now we have 2,255 events for just starting up the Spark cluster. And we can look at the details like timestamp and body and so on. We'll look more at this when we look at it through the event house. And we should be able to file, run this cell and all below. So now I'm just going to run everything. And we should have a ton more events in the Event Hub. Remember, the cache for the Event Hub is only 1 hour. So if we did not capture it into something like Event House, then it would be gone forever. So if we hit View Events, we're going to get the total. Okay, now we have 7,020 events. Let's go back to our workspace and look at the event stream, Fabric Conference 2026. I'm going to do a little housekeeping. Right now it's not active. So what we're going to do is let's see if I can change some names. Come on. I did not say edit. Okay. Unless it's running. Okay. So why don't we call this source and we'll call this events, right? Because that's where it's coming from, the Event Hub, right? And we'll call this destination events because that's where it's going. And we can see these are the events. This is the workspace. This is the event house. This is the KQL. That's the table, JSON. Okay. And if we edit this, we can take a look at this again. This is my connection. So I already set up the connection to it. It's a default consumer group. It's in JSON. Okay. And now we're going to hit publish. That's going to republish it. And this event should flow automatically if it was running, which it looks like it was. We can see 2017 here. This data should show up in our event house. So now if we go to workspaces again, here, and we go to our event house, and this brings us back where we are. We can say query with code, right? And we can see the application name was the notebook, and this the driver, and we can look at details. So again, you have to get used to reading these logs, but the logs for the Spark are now saved for prosperity, and we can review them for issues and or problems. Okay. So again, to recap, we talked about how we can set up our Spark environment. So we'll go quickly over it again. So if we go to the notebook, we can see we're using the event environment, log2 event hub environment. This emits to a event hub, which we're getting data to, which is EH, and we can see the data explorer will show us it, right? So if we use events, and then we're going ahead and using a streaming pipeline to take the source events from the hub and pipe them to the KQL database. And then we can go into the KQL database and we can ask queries like, hey, guess what? Show me the data within the last 30 minutes. And that's it.